Greetings! Welcome to day 10 of the 30 days of Halloween. Today I'm in my kitchen and it's just about 6 o'clock, and the number one question on my mind is, what do witches eat? I thought I would share a little recipe with you, a little quick recipe that you might want to use for your Samhain celebration, your Halloween celebration, because, I'll tell you why, I was intrigued by it. I've had it before, but I was just thinking to myself, I was doing some surfing on the internet, and like I do, and every time around this time of the year, I go back to pictures that I have of a trip that I took to Scotland years ago. We went to Edinburgh, and I know in Edinburgh they have some great celebrations at Samhain that I've always wanted to go to, and we're very much stuck inside right now, still on quarantine. Probably are not going to have much of a Halloween celebration at all, public, or even a public ritual, or group with our group or anything. Still. So it's very much on my mind, the thought of celebrating with some other witches, and I thought, what do they eat in Scotland for Halloween? And I Googled it, and I was intrigued by what I found. I wasn't really expecting to find a food that was really commonly eaten on Halloween in Scotland, and I apologize if any of you live in Scotland and can contradict this. But most people on the internet seem to be claiming that in Scotland on Halloween, pork rolls or pork products of some kind are commonly eaten on Halloween. Well, why would that be? Why would that be, I asked. Well, everywhere I looked, I saw pretty much the same text that said, I'm looking down at my book because I kind of made notes. The Witchcraft Act of 1735 was passed by British Parliament, which made it a crime for a person to claim that any human being had magical powers or was guilty of practicing witchcraft. This law abolished the hunting and execution of witches in Great Britain, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But the reason I read that verse was every place that I went and said what was the deal about pork and Halloween, it said in the 1950s, this act of 1735, the Witchcraft Act, was officially repealed. And because it was repealed, it says that the ban on pork products was lifted, and sausage rolls and other pastries became a popular snack for the holidays. They had been banned all this time from eating pork, apparently, or pork products at Halloween, since 1735 at least. So by the 1950s, they said enough of that, I guess, and every year since they enjoy pork products on Halloween. Okay, well, that's very interesting, and I could maybe go over that. Except when I was looking for further information, nobody seemed to have anything definitive. Nobody had any definitive reason. And it's very intriguing to me because, I'll tell you why. You know, one of my interests in Scotland, other than my grandmother was from Scotland, and her parents, all that family, the entire family, came from Scotland, and my mother, our ties are very strong to Scotland. We identify very strongly with the Scottish people. And I've been there several times, and my persona in the SCA is Scottish, is 14th century Scottish. So I'm very intrigued by Highlanders and the diets, particularly, that they might have enjoyed during the Middle Ages. That's where my basis of my research has always been. And I know in the Middle Ages there was pork consumed in Scotland. And how do I know that? I know that not from recipes necessarily published, because we don't have published recipes, many, from that period of time from Scotland, specifically from Scotland. But we have archaeological evidence that pigs were everywhere, and we have archaeological evidence of many, 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 many pig bones found all over Scotland, both the Highlands and the Lowlands. They didn't just fall apart and die. They didn't just fall apart and die and go unnoticed. I think they ate them. I really think they ate them. Now, I do see some evidence that there might have been prejudice. Some people said there could have been prejudice at one time about the pig or about the sow or about the boar, the wild cousin to our domestic pig. There might have been some prejudice about that, some taboos perhaps at different periods of time since the ancients, for different reasons. And a lot of it seemed to have to do with the fact that some religious sects, some religious little groups, used the pigs or the boar or whatever, different depending on who you were talking to, as religious. They were religious icons. They were they use them for ceremonial reasons. They might have sacrificed them in their rituals. They may have eaten of the flesh or eaten of the pork as a cleansing, during a cleansing ritual, perhaps, or the blood of the pig or whatever they might have used. And sometimes, very often in history, when something shows up to be used for religious purposes or for that kind of purposes, or among the priests or whoever, the Druid priests or whoever we're talking about, or Celtic priests or whoever, the people that were not the priests or not the people doing the actual ritual might have been dissuaded from eating the pigs. Eating the pigs. It's one theory, okay. Another theory might be that there might have been a taboo about it, like that those people were really weird. Oh, they did some really weird pig things, so we just don't want anything to do with them. It was just a little weird. Another thing could have been that it could be just simply economics. We know that in England and in the lowlands particularly, but in England we know pigs were commonly kept in cities by people that lived in cities. They could keep very small, just a small amount of land. Because a pig, pig can eat your leavings, can eat your scraps, whatever. Could eat your, garbage, whatever's garbage a pig will eat. They're very easy. They can be on their own. You don't have to care for them. They don't require the care that some of the other animals require. Okay, so a lot of people had them because economically it was really smart to do. You could keep a pig and you kept it for a while till it got a size, and then it could be butchered and you got a lot of meat out of that pig. It was, pig can get a pretty good size. Okay, so it could have been economical. Also, they ate things that the Scots used for, I think they ate the grain, the barley and things that, to Scottish people, and during the Middle Ages at least, that was a big that was their money, that was their money. They first of all used barley, the grains of barley, for, brewing and for their own grain, and to feed their other animals. But, a pig will eat a lot. Pig will eat a lot. And maybe it was just the economics were not there, perhaps. There's a lot of different reasons that it could have happened. And it's really not for us to try to guess. I'm not an historian, so I would want to not say too much I'm not going to make an assumption. But I do want to say one thing. We know very well as witches, we all know the history of witches. And we know here in the United States, we're very aware about the Salem trials. Of course, the Salem trials, where the witches were executed. It's very famous stories about that. And it was a very horrible time, a shameful time in our history. Not the only one. We have many, many, many of those. But it happened for a short period of time, really, realistically, and affected by numbers, very small amount of people by numbers. But in Europe and in Britain, Great Britain, and other European countries, witches, women were hunted down and tortured and killed in the most horrific ways for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Let that sink in. Hundreds of years. I'm talking about 350 years easy, 400 years or so. That this went on pretty much unchecked in a lot of areas throughout Europe and in Britain. The peak of the witch trials, which they called them, were during the 16th and 17th century, which is prior to this Witch Act of 1735. So that was the peak of it. And coming out of the 17th century, going into the 18th century, could have been the time they just said enough is enough, and this Witchcraft Act abolished any kind of executing or hunting down of women. Thank goodness. The prejudices did not end then. We know that the prejudice did not end. There's still prejudices today about all kinds of people, not just witches. But if you want to look at it by today's reasoning, in modern reasoning, let's say, what it was about the banning of the pork products at all, especially as witches or as pagans, we might very easily go to the conclusion that who loved the pigs and who loved the sows and who loved the boars, who associated them with their gods and who did sacrifices with them for their gods, and who had many gods associated, directly associating God and God associations directly with the pig or with the sow or with the boar, were the pagans, or the Celts, or the Druids. They worshiped these animals. They sacrificed these animals. They used them in their rituals. And what happens at Halloween, what occurs at the same time as Halloween, is Samhain. The pagan ritual of Samhain occurs. And remember, we talked about it in an earlier video, how we had to get that. The church took that and did what they could do to get it away from the pagans. We're going to talk about saints. We're going to talk about saints. Instead of honoring the dead, we're going to honor saints. We're going to honor saints. We're going to remember how this was changed. So it makes perfect sense to me. Perfect sense to me that if pork was a part of the pagan Samhain ritual in any way, pork could not be a part of the modern or the Halloween ritual that people were celebrating, that the church was encouraging them to celebrate, honoring the saints. Pork had no place at that table. And that is why I believe pork is very much embraced in Scotland at this time of the year. Made me choke on that one. Sorry. So anyway, I thought it would be fun, it would be a kick to make sausage rolls for our Halloween, 30 days of Halloween, because it's something that you can do very simply. Again, it's a very simple recipe. I'm always looking, you could make it more complicated. I know a lot of people do make them complicated. I haven't really eaten them that often, but I've had them at places like the Ren Fair. They've served something like this, place like that. And so I just looked it up and I found the simplest recipe that I could find, and I thought we will try that and see what it tastes like. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I have to make them, and it's very simple. Okay. First of all, before I go any further, I want to say what I'm going to serve them on. I have these cute little dishes that I had last year. I think I bought them last year. I did. I think I bought them at, a store called Home Goods. I don't know if that's a national chain or what kind of a store it is, but a lot of housewares and at reasonable prices, and decorated house items and dishes and cooking things, and they have some cute things, seasonal things in there all the time. But this made these little dishes. I got them. Remember, I had my black dinner last year, so I was looking for black dishes, and I saw this black and white, and I saw that it was made to look like a Ouija board. But instead at the top it has spirits and at the bottom it has cheese. And I used these for our hors d'oeuvres during our black dinner last year. And then we had it Mabon. There's one in white. You can see the difference. One in white and one in black. They're cute as anything, aren't they? So I thought I would make, and if I wanted to use the sausage rolls, these little dishes, I don't know if I'll use the sausage rolls on these or not, but these little dishes are good for hors d'oeuvres. You can cut the sausage rolls into small bites if you want to do them that way and put them here on your hors d'oeuvre table. Or this is a cute sized dish if you want to include it on your ancestor altar or on your joint ritual as part of your cakes and nail rather than something sweet. You can use something savory like this. Again, cut in small pieces. It's finger foods. There's a duck in here. Excuse me. That was my timer telling me that enough time has passed for thawing, that my pastry sheets have thawed enough. They're supposed to thaw for 40 minutes, no more. And we're going to roll them out. This is what we're using. Puff pastry sheets in the freezer section at the grocery store. We are using Jimmy Dean pork sausage. You can use any kind of pork sausage. I'm using Jimmy Dean's because we have it. I think you can find better, probably at a butcher, or make your own. And this is sage because this is what my husband likes to use when we have Scotch eggs, which is we take camping a lot, hard-boiled egg with sausage meat wrapped around it, and they're fried and they're delicious. So I have that, and then one more ingredient, just 3 simple ingredients. I have some Dijon mustard, and here I have the country. It's coarse ground because I'm coarse ground, and so my mustard's coarse ground too. So I'm going to show you, so simple we're going to make this, very simple. Stay tuned. I found this really simple recipe that said it just needed 1 pound of sausage, but we're going to be making 12 of these rolls, and that just seems really kind of cheap on the meat. So I'm just going to divide up in each one. I'm just going to divide up the meat. In each chop, I'm going to make 6. Divide the meat into 6. First of all, if I get the meat divided first, then they'll be ready when I get the dough out. Okay. Whoops. That aside. So divided into 6. I'm just going to cut it in half long ways. And this is an estimation. And then I'm going to estimate a third. Estimate a third. So I have a third and a third. And a third. Now this might be too big of meat because they said just 1 package. That just seems so scant. That just seems scant. Now we can readjust this later if they seem out of proportion, but I think they're going to be good. I'm trying to work quickly because my pastry has been out of the freezer for 40 minutes, and I don't want it to get too thawed. It says on the picture, on the box, try not to thaw it longer than 40 minutes. I have to admit, I really do not use puff pastry. I'm not the biggest fan in the world of puff pastry, even though I'm the biggest fan in the world of bread and pastry, and I don't know. I don't think it's the puff that I don't like. That seems silly, but I don't know. I think it's because it's usually so flaky, gets all over the place, messy. I'm kind of a messy person, but I might come across as a messy person, but I'm kind of neat when I eat. I don't want it all over me. So again, I'm just cutting that in half that way. Now you could weigh these out, you could do all kinds of things, but we're not going to do those things. Because we want something that is quick. We don't want to spend all of our time cooking up something. It's just a simple little snack like this. I love these kind of recipes for parties and things that are quick to make and they're good left over. And okay. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. I'm going to move it right here. And I have this towel. I'm just going to use my hands. Set this aside. And then I'm going to open my pastry. Puff pastry. And there are 2 ready to bake sheets, and that's exactly what I need. 2 ready to bake sheets in the box. My daughter loves puff pastry, so she will love this recipe. My other daughters will not love this recipe because they very well might like puff pastry. They do not like pork because they're vegetarian. So, I hope my sand is not going to dry this out too much. Now I'm going to take 1 sheet at a time. I'll just fold that back up. Hopefully this is not going to break all over the place. And I'm just going to open it up. And that's the size of it, isn't it? That's the size. I don't know if we do anything to that or not. I don't think we do. Okay. And I can see it on the folds, it's already cut into 3. I'm going to take my knife and cut that off. It's already cut into 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to cut it in half. But before I do that, I want to spread it with some mustard. I love it. I haven't bought mustard in a long time. I usually make my own mustard, but no, we don't want it too thick. We just want a nice thin layer. It's just going to help season the meat a little bit. But of course the meat is already, I bought the sage sausage. And depending on what you buy, now you don't have to buy it in a tub. You can buy it from a butcher. You could also buy sausages as long as they're uncooked. You can buy them from, just the meat case. Any kind you want. And just remove the meat from the casing. Okay? You can't use them in the casing. The meat has to go into the. That's one thing. You can't have a casing. So if your sausage has meat. If your sausage has a casing on it, just slit that down and squeeze out the meat, or however you want to do it, whatever way you can get it out. Now, I had a jar of water earlier. I do not have it right now. Let me go get it real quick. I might have gone too far out to the edge, because I just realized I had to seal this. But anyway, I'm going to take my knife about halfway. I'm going to cut my pastry in half, and then I'm going to cut along 1, 2, 3. So I have 6. Now this is where we determine whether I needed all this meat or not. If I did not need the meat, I will divide them up and use half. Okay, so I'm going to take my little thing. I take my meat. I'm going to roll it in a log. roll it in a log. Like that. And I'm going to see if that will reach. And I think it'll reach. And I don't need the water. I'm just going to pinch. So I roll it together. I'm going to pinch. Actually, some of that sausage I'm going to take out. It's a little bit too much. So I just have, you say pinch that together, and then I'm just going to pat that down. And then I'm going to lay the sausage down so I have a nice full roll. That looks really nice. Nice full roll. I'm going to lay that down on a sheet that I have lined. I have it lined with soap pad. I'm just going to lay that on there. So I don't need the water after all. But I have determined that it's a little bit heavy on the meat. So I'm just going to take not quite so much meat. I'm going to leave a little behind. We'll make sausage patties for breakfast or something. But I think one package would have just, for me, it might be fine for you, but I really want a little bit of meat in my sausage. My husband will be happier too with a little more meat. Okay. And I'm just rolling that up. You see that? And I'm just going to pinch that together. Pinch it together. Lay it down. It's going to shrink up a little bit when it cooks. Keep that in mind. Sausage does that. Okay. And I'm just going to continue in this fashion. Rolling my meat I want to use. I think I took maybe a quarter of the meat out of each thing. But oh my goodness, so simple, doesn't it? I just want this to go together. I want to pinch this. Pinch it together. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm just pinching, 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 pinching. And then I'm going to lay that over. And push it back in, make a nice little package, and lay it down on the seam on my tray. Again, I think these are nice amounts. This is a really nice amount. You just use what you think is right for your sausage. How much you want. Now, people are going to ask me, because I know you will, what if I don't like sausage? Can I use blah, blah, blah? Can I use chicken sausage? Can I use turkey sausage? I'm vegan. Can I use pretend meat sausage? Whatever that's called. Well, yeah, you can use whatever you want. But I'm doing this because in Scotland, they eat pork. I'm not a vegetarian, and I don't have pork restrictions in my diet, so that's what I am choosing. But you need to choose what's right for you and your family. No judgment here. You know I have vegetarian children. No way they're going to eat this. But my children don't spend salmon with me, so that's not as big of a deal. So I'm just pinching a little bit off of it, how I divided it. Anytime I go to make anything and I have to try to say, oh, I want to make 12 meatballs, I will pre-divide it. 6 crab cakes, whatever, I pre-divide it. Try to get my portions as close as I can. It doesn't take any more time. And then we have nobody sad because they didn't get the right amount. So anyway, I'm pinching. This is important. You know, the seam is important. It's not that it's going to seal it in, because we're not sealing things inside because our ends are open, but we don't want it to come apart. We want it to stay a nice little roll. And this is our chance to shape it in that nice little roll. Again, down on that See, this is the portion I took, and I'm going to pull about that much off of it. So one package might have been perfect. Here I am. Do you know? I keep saying my father. Like I'm thinking about my father all the time right now. My husband panicked a little bit when I said I was going to divide that pound package of sausage into 12. He kind of panicked, thinking, well, that doesn't sound good. Now, if you were worried about your seal not holding, you could wet your finger. I have this water here if I wanted it. As a matter of fact, I could even wet my finger now and just take it along there before I lay it down. If I was worried about it not sealing, I could do that. But you know what? I'm just not going to worry. I'm just not going to worry. I could worry, but why? Why would I worry? Okay, so there's 6. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to get out my other pack, and when I'm all done, then I'll show you what we do before we don't go away. Before you put them in the oven. And again, you say, just open this up. I'm not doing anything at all to this. I spread that flour out a little bit, that's all I did. See that? That's it. Put some mustard on it. And here we go, we're rolling. We are rolling. I've got 12 beautiful sausage rolls. So you see, this is how much meat I had left over. I kept 4 of the sections, didn't use. I was able to divide it. So these 4 are going to be 4 sausage patties for breakfast, or they're going to be, I might get some hard-boiled eggs and make some Scotch eggs for my husband. He loves those, but whatever. So we have this left. And the only one last thing I have to do before I bake them, I have an egg. I'm just going to beat that up a little bit in a little bowl. You can add a little water to thin it if you want to. It's not necessary. And then I'm just gonna take a brush and brush them, each of these with a little bit of egg. Just to give them a little bit of a nice little shine. It doesn't necessarily, I think it makes a nice color. I don't know what it does. Like I said, I don't know anything more about puff pastry than you do, but I know this is something my daughter would love to make. She does a lot of entertaining at her house, particularly around the holidays, through the holidays. She's always looking for finger food ideas. And if you wanted these, of course, for finger food, if you're going to use them like in a ritual or on an altar, you would want to probably cut these. But we'll look at that when after we bake them. I wouldn't cut them now. I mean, you could cut them now. For an hors d'oeuvre, yeah, you might want to cut them now. I think I would cut them in probably thirds. So instead of 12, I would probably have 36. If I wanted them just to pop, pop like an hors d'oeuvre. You think about something that you can pop into your mouth in one bite. Of course, that's funny. My husband would say, I look at them the way they are now, and I say, I could pop that into my mouth in one bite. Of course, he's kidding. But anyway, so this is it. It couldn't be simpler. Puff pastry, sausage meat, whatever you want. Again, we have the Jimmy Dean sage because that's what we like. Well, we don't need that much of it, but when we have it, we like that. And I don't think that it's necessary even to have them on this sheet. I just have them on. That's what I do. It's sort of my thing. So I'm going to put these in a 400 degree oven, 400 degree Fahrenheit. The instructions say 10 to 20 minutes. That's kind of funny. I think for a sausage this big, it's probably going to go closer to 20. So I'm going to set a timer for 15 and then I will look at it. And I'll let you know. So I'll be back when they're all baked and we'll taste them. Stay tuned. The sausage rolls are finished baking. They baked exactly for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. And as you can see, I think you can see, they're nice golden brown. They're beautifully golden brown on the outside from the egg wash. If I wanted to do anything to improve, I might say you might want to bake them on a rack on a baking sheet rather than right down on the baking sheet, because the bottom is a little bit soggy. As they cool, it's not quite so soggy. When I first took them off the baking sheet, it was a little bit soggy. But let's be honest, we eat something like this because the delicious fat from the sausage goes into the puff pastry. So is that a problem? I don't know if that's a problem for you or not. If it is, put it up on a baking sheet. And they're lovely. I think they're lovely. I have let them cool on a rack, and then they're ready to serve. We can put them out on the dish as whole, or we can cut them up. I cut it in thirds. I cut one in thirds. Puff pastry is not the easiest thing to cut because sometimes it'll flake, but it worked pretty good. Again, the grease, grease is like glue. I think the grease from the sausage holds that together. I think that's what makes these good. I think that's what people like about these, is the way the fat just hugs that pastry. So anyway, it's really lovely. It came out lovely. You can eat them plain or you could eat them with the sauce. I think traditionally they're eaten with a HB sauce or brown sauce, or they're eaten with mustard or ketchup or whatever you choose, or just plain. It's a good taste. I'll tell you what I think. Take a bite. I might pop it since we said these are poppers, right? We'll see if we can pop it. Tastes like, you want to taste like? Tastes like sausage. If you don't like sausage, you're not going to be a fan, but if you like sausage, it's really good. The mustard, the Dijon mustard, definitely, I would definitely go ahead and add the Dijon. I think it improves the flavor. And some people add onion. If you want to add onion, I would cook the onion a little bit first before I put it in, to make sure you're not biting into raw onion or hard bits of onion. Get it nice and soft before you put it in with the sausage. Some people lighten up the sausages a little bit with breadcrumbs, like you do when you're doing a meatball or meatloaf. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it tastes pretty good to me. It tastes pretty good to me. I think this was a success. So anyway, it's one thing witches eat, at least in Scotland. People eat this in Scotland. Give it a try. Thank you so much for joining me today on day, 10 of the 30 days of Halloween. And come back and join me again later. Coming back and join me again tomorrow. See what we're cooking up tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I'm Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.